Hey there, I'm Paul Rabelais. I'm an estate planning attorney, and in this video I want to talk about the time bomb that often erupts when you have a blended family situation. So I'm Paul Rabelais. I help families around Louisiana get and keep their estate legal program in order. And if you're in a second or third or subsequent marriage and you have children from a prior marriage, I see that situation a lot. People are living longer, a little bit more divorced maybe than there was a generation or two ago. And so it's now the norm for people to get married and both spouses have children from prior marriages or relationships. In my view, it's the biggest time bomb when it comes to estate planning. Here's the problem. So let's say it doesn't matter which spouse dies first. Let's just, for our example, say the husband dies first, but it would work the same way if the wife died first. Husband wanted to provide for his wife, and of course he had children from his prior marriage, but he wants to provide for his wife and his kids. So he's got some assets a certain way, some another way. He has his IRAs, his life insurance, his retirement accounts, his annuities, those assets that go to the designated beneficiary. He thinks he's got it under control because he names, of course, his wife as the primary beneficiary, but he thinks he's smart. He designates his children as the contingent or secondary beneficiary. So he thinks he has that under control. And then he gets his will done, and his will leaves things to his spouse. Either he leaves ownership to his wife, or maybe he leaves usufruct to his wife and names his kids as the naked owners. That's something people often done in that first or second marriage situation. And then the husband dies. Now, Dear Abby, who I used to read when I was really, really young, wrote one time, you never really get to know someone until you share an inheritance with them. So dad dies, husband dies, whatever you want to call it. They go through the funeral arrangements, then they start dealing with the estate. And, pretty quickly, his surviving wife, the stepmother of his children, pretty quickly, she gets a death certificate. She goes to the financial institutions where he has IRAs, retirement accounts, life insurance, and annuities, and she immediately puts all that in her name because she was the designated beneficiary. Sure, his children were the contingent beneficiaries, but that means nothing now. The fact that she was the 100% primary beneficiary, it all goes to her. Now she can do whatever she wants to with it. The fact that his kids were contingent beneficiaries means zero. Now they start dealing with the will. And let's say, for example, the will left her this Louisiana term called usufruct, the right to use all of his things. And let's say it lasted till she died. And then, the children would, as naked owners, would get it when she died. Well, let's also say that after he died, they went through the probate or the succession, and she got her usufruct, and she lived for many more years, and maybe she spent all of the assets over which she had a usufruct, or maybe she gave that money away because she was the owner of the money with this obligation for her estate to account for it when she died, but there was nothing left in her estate when she died. So she dies years later, and of course on the IRA that she received from her husband, guess who she names as the designated beneficiaries? She had 2 children of her own, husband had 2 children of his own. After he died, all those IRAs, retirement plans, annuities, life insurance went to her. That's all going to go to her kids. And then she dies, and now it's time for his kids to collect on that usufruct, but there's nothing in her estate to collect from. So his kids, the penalty for him dying first is that his kids get nothing. Her 2 kids get everything. All his kids get are really 2 things. A legal bill for the lawyer that they hired who looked into it after she died for them and who advised them, nothing we can do, you're screwed. And then the other thing the kids, from the husband get is just that bitter taste in their mouth about both their father and their stepmother because the kids, these days they kind of count on that inheritance. Now they're really left high and dry with no rights whatsoever. Bottom line is the traditional legal plan of leaving things to your spouse with some obligation, legal or moral, to leave it back, to your children when your spouse passes away. That traditional legal plan doesn't work in the blended family situation where you have husband and wife each with their own children from prior marriages or relationships. So what's the solution? Well, the solution is to have, a customized, blended family estate planning program. And so the traditional things that couples do who have children from the one marriage, throw all that out the window. So now we're talking about making sure that your retirement accounts in some form, whether it's through designating beneficiaries, designating perhaps a trust as a beneficiary, maybe in the right circumstances, would enable you to leave things that would be available to take care of your spouse's needs. But when your spouse later passed away, things would automatically revert back to the children of the first spouse to die, and making sure that the right one, two, or more people can control those assets the right way between the time that the first spouse dies and the time that the second spouse dies, to make sure no shenanigans occurs. And then, of course, it's those will and trust provisions where the first spouse to die leaves their estate in a way where it's again available for the surviving spouse. The right people are in charge of that estate during those perhaps years when that surviving spouse continues to live, takes care of the surviving spouse, but assets automatically revert back to the children of the first spouse to die after the second spouse dies. If you got all that, feel free to rewind and listen to this again. But just know the traditional stuff, I love you will, I leave it to my spouse, and then the spouse can own it and do what they want to with it. They're going to leave it to their kids. Your kids are going to get stuck. Doesn't work. Not to mention all of those, if you're incapacitated decisions, who do you want making those, talking to your doctors, dealing with your money when you can't do it for yourself. Got to have the right people there as well. So you don't want your spouse and your kids, fighting each other either during your lifetime or when you pass away. It's just a mess. Nobody wins. It's awful. Have your estate planning program the right way set up. Here's what you do from here. All right, first thing you need to do is maybe do some research. Out there online, Google, YouTube. Heck, I've put out a lot of material, videos or otherwise, where you can find out more about the blended family estate planning situation and what are some of the key issues there. Maybe you get it right now that you got to take care of this stuff. Maybe upon further research, you'll get it then. But at some point, you're going to need to have a conversation with somebody to start talking about it. So we've made it easy. And what you can do is just schedule a free 15-minute call with me, and you can tell me about what's important in your circumstances, what kind of goals you have, objectives you have, and then we can start a conversation about what a program might look like to have that all put in order. So if you're watching this on Facebook, just click the Learn More button. If you're watching on YouTube, go in the description and click the One Sub link. That'll take you to my calendar. And I've blocked off just a little bit of time every week where I've set aside my client work, and I'll be happy to talk to you. It doesn't cost you anything. Just have a short call and see if what those concerns are and what's the simplest way to address them, so that you can have that peace of mind knowing that all those relationships, whether they're great now or whether there's a little tension now, they won't get worse down the road. I's will be dotted, T's will be crossed. Everybody knows where they stand, and you won't be leaving a mess for those you leave behind. So there's your next step. Hope this helps. That blended family situation, got to address it. Got to address it right. Can't just address it, but got to address it the right way. So hope that helps. Do your research. Feel free to schedule a call. I'm Paul Rabelais. Have a great day.